Are we live, dear boy? We are live. How are you?
Good to see you, Rowan.
Always good to see you. Feargal, McCormack, Rowan Hand, Destination Uri, Wide World, streaming to the wide world. They're coming very shortly, the world of judo, of course. The chrysanthemum and the sword.
No doubt about Martin has skills that no other man has.
Yes, he has actually.
Yeah,
he walks quietly tall.
Very talented man.
Yeah,
very talented
a bit like I say, the Catholic Church at the moment. They have their response is happening to the homelessness thing. They're doing things. The bishop, the parish priest of Limerick, saying, "Don't knock the houses down in Moyross." Bishop Bishop Martin in Dublin, he's doing things. It's a kind of whispered strength. They're not doing anything loud and rude and raucous, but there's great strength in whispers. The whisper gives a thing emphasis, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it also creates community.
Yeah. You're a lover of community, big time. And that's what everything grows out of community, Feargal.
Yes, if you get buy-in, you can do most things.
Well, you did your business and your people, your committee. You're on the front page of the Democrat today on the Christmas business dinner, the charity dinner, celebrating the 1 million mark and 1 million smiles and the Toy Mountain once again. And I had the privilege of being your guest there last Thursday night. A magnificent occasion.
A good occasion, a lovely atmosphere. That is a community event. It's an awful lot more than a fundraising event. And obviously, Father Peter McVerry and the moderator Michael Barry were also both excellent. Yeah. I thought the footage on the kids' Christmas party, the kids who had previously benefited from the charity dinner,
it was wonderful.
and had gone to Euro Disney with their families was lovely. I see both the Democrat today and the New Reporter covered very good features on that.
Yeah.
And you were there yourself on that occasion. But I thought the charity dinner was a tremendous occasion. I mean, it's hard to believe that over, I never could have envisaged when I came up with that concept 15 years ago that today we would have raised, with the help of many, many people, in excess of £1 million, including toys, for local children's charities.
I think that the community is about all of that. It's also about us. We have very, very bad weather forecast for later this week. It's about looking after neighbours and knocking the door and saying, "Are you okay?" and making sure that people are happy.
Yes, and I think that's a challenge for us all. But the challenge is that a kind word or giving a little bit of time to somebody else can make a big difference.
Huge difference indeed. Now, what has your week been like? Have you been travelling?
Yeah, I've had a busy week, to be honest. During the past week or so, we expanded our business. We acquired a practice in Belfast.
Yes.
We joined with a practice in Belfast, JL Grant & Co. And we then had the charity dinner, and then we had our staff party was on Friday night.
Oh my God.
Saturday night at Warren Point, we're fortunate to beat Byrne after a very sporting...
You're on the up all the way.
After a very sporting game, I say it takes two teams to play, and both teams were very good, actually, in Park Esther. And Sunday I was at the Christmas fair at Annetts, which I thought was very good.
Isn't it?
Very good. And after doing a day's work, or trying to do a day's work yesterday, I was delighted to be at an informal event for Canon John Kearney, celebrated his 70th birthday last night.
He's a grand fellow. He and I are the same age. We went to the same school. We, for a time, studied in the same classroom. And I've known John since then.
He did very well, and he stayed young at heart. I mean, I happened to be at the Children's Mass on Warren Point on Sunday at 10:30. Santa Claus arrived, and John Kearney headed off in the sleigh.
My goodness.
And I think that type of creativity, that pastor duty of reaching out to people in need, of being able to access people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have been accessed.
Yes.
He has that skill of quietly, indeed many times behind the scenes, making things happen.
I'm going to ask, hold that thought, Martin, you wouldn't put that little wedge in that place for us, because we're getting a persistent rattling there, which we want to avoid.
As long as it's not the rat, we're okay.
Well, sure, now we would just get rid of that as well. It's all good. But I went, perchance, on Sunday to the Dominican church, where Father Joe Ralph of the Dominicans, another great man.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, and again it's in community, they have a thing called Lectio Divina, And it's the gospel of the Christians, the New Testament, focusing on the command to love. And they go out into the community and then do what's right to be done. All kinds of people doing that. The St. Vincent de Paul, constantly there. The Salvation Army with Newry Knights. Those Newry Knights will be a great addition to that nighttime economy, where they can go and help people who are in need of just a cup of coffee or get them home safely, things like that.
Look, I think all this is good, and I think it's good that Christmas is very important for us all in terms of family. It's also important that we enjoy ourselves. Yes. It's also important that we take a break. But we also have to recognize that there are some people working all the time. We also have to recognize that for some people, Christmas is a very difficult time. Yes. And I think that if we can take that wee step back and think a little bit broader beyond oneself, yes, I think the rewards are great.
Where are you on Justin Welby, the Archbishop's belief that we need more food banks, and Cameron saying, well, no, we don't need more food banks, because the existence of the food bank creates a demand for the food bank. People can become dependent on the food bank. And Cameron believing his economy is not an economy that needs food banks.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't studied it in sufficient detail to give a comment. I think it's something that's quite complex, and I think one would have to look at experiences around the world before they'll comment upon that, because it has been tried. I don't know the outputs of the results. Suffice to say that I understand the rationale of both arguments. I think, if we're really being honest, we in Northern Ireland have found we're very good or perhaps bad exponents of the dependency culture. And there is no doubt about it that once you become dependent on something, after a short period of time, it becomes a necessity. So somewhere around there, we have to ensure people get food. It certainly makes logic that food that's not being used is used to better use. And more importantly, no one should be starving.
Yeah,
so I if I told you the truth, it's an area I don't.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't. I'm reluctant to comment upon because I don't have knowledge.
You use a huge phrase there. It's a frightening phrase. A dependency culture. That's a serious bit of it, and it's like in the Republic at the moment over homelessness. They're putting in measures, and the measures are dealing with the immediacy of the disease, but they're not dealing with the underlying cost, which Peter McVerry told me last week is 50 million immediately to give folk their rent supplements, and that's not happening.
Yeah, well, maybe those things are important, and again, I'd be very respectful of Peter McVerry because he's at the coalface, he knows what's going on. And the only thing I'd say about the dependency culture is that if we don't somehow encourage somebody that it's good to work, that it's good to do things for themselves, then I think ultimately we don't do society a favor.
Yeah.
So somehow we have to ensure, I think, that people, we have to ensure from a guarding point of view that nobody is in such despair that they can't live tomorrow.
Despair is a good word, an interesting word.
But equally, I think we have to create an environment where it is good to have pride and self-respect in one's work,
and to grow,
in one's help, it's good to make your own meal. It's good to do your own garden. And I'm using those as simplistic ways. But what I'm trying to say here is, as one who doesn't do his own garden, so I have to be honest, and one who doesn't cook many meals. But what I'm trying to say is that maybe I do other things, but the point is, it really is important, I think, for the individual and for society that everyone plays a positive contributory role. And I think it doesn't do any of us any good for people to be continuously negative and say, why me? I actually believe why me is a dangerous saying. I would prefer, I'm changing today.
Oh yeah, that's a lovely philosophy. Let's have that as a mantra. I'm changing today to go forward. Now, having said all of that, God help us, there are people out there who would love to be able to work, who would love to be able to do this, and they can't.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the bigger challenge. The challenge is to create an environment, because I think if you think about this, if we can get people working, we create the self-respect that ultimately, now, that's not for one moment saying that that's the simplicity of all our problems. It's not. And there are always going to be social problems. There are always going to be very challenging needs. And I think that we as a society, yes, we somehow need people like Peter McVerry to keep us right, to keep our feet on the ground, to
Absolutely.
guide us. But I did read an article last week, I think in one of the weekend papers, which was frightening. If you take the amount of money that is being given to a number of homeless organisations, right, and if the figures on the homeless are right, I think someone needs to look carefully where the money's going, because there is significant money per head going in there. Now, I think Peter McVerry's point's a far more relevant one, because the rent one is saying not only are you helping one individual, but you're helping potentially a family
Yes,
unit.
of course, of course.
And you're maybe giving people the water or the oil to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're giving them that. It's not a handout. It's a leg up.
And I think that's why some
leg
Vincent
up,
de Paul
give them help,
programs are working well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're not giving you money to go and spend it where you like.
Yes.
They're giving you money which will help your quality of life.
Absolutely. And we're talking of St. Vincent de Paul, we'll remind people of my winter warmth pledge. If you get the government £200 oil allowance at Christmas time, I just got mine. And if you don't really need it, why not give it to the St. Vincent de Paul so they can do things with it? That's maybe a thing for you to contemplate, and it's a good thing to do. Where is the economy at the moment in all of this? I see a report, there's the Ulster Bank Associated. Is it the Ulster Bank?
Yeah, Richard Ramsey.
Yeah, they're talking about a cooling off. What's that about?
I want to remind you, Ronan, I've continued to use the word over the last 6 to 18 months. Actually, 18 months ago, I think we started talking about a fragile recovery.
Yes.
I think we're in the middle of a fragile recovery. I think that the trend is upwards. I think that we are moving forward, but it would be unwise to suggest there won't be hiccups.
Yeah.
There will be hiccups. When I mean by fragile, we talked about a few weeks ago, slight world changes outside one's control, whether it be Russia, whether it be China not growing as well, whether it be the trouble in Syria, whether it be
world influences that are changing in a sense.
There are issues there that means there's not a resilience in the world economy that hasn't been built up again to allow us to take those what I would call shocks. Well, however, I come back to my point. I'm pretty confident the trend is upwards. Not because things are taking off phenomenally in the world, but because we have adapted. We've shown more flexibility, and that combined with improved economic trends is meaning that you only have to look around you in the shops here. People are finding it difficult, but they are managing.
We'd never thought.
Not everyone.
We'd never thought a few years back that something happening on the border of Russia and the Ukraine would have an effect on a 5-mile town cheese factory.
But any import embargoes now are having fun. I mean, you take the Eurozone is unbelievably affected by the fact that Germany can't export into Russia at present. So these all have knock-on effects on a very open economy that is the island of Ireland. We then have the North, which is suffering without doubt from austerity, and George Osborne's austerity measures will continue to 2020. So definitely we are in transition. I think we're going the right direction. I think there are opportunities out there, but I would be wrong if I didn't say there are many business challenges, and we're all experiencing those every day of the week.
I see there's movement in the Republic, I think it is, in the mortgages, deposits for mortgages. There's one bank, they're asking for 5% deposit. I think the Bank of Ireland is still looking for 10%, and that continues to be a kind of bone of contention, does it not?
Well, I think the Republic economy is starting to come back. There's no doubt about that. It's going to perhaps maybe over 3% GDP growth for a couple of years. I think we have to make sure people don't get carried away. And the reason why I think that you may see the 5% mortgage and 10 at a maximum, I don't think I don't think there's a hope ahead of you seeing 100% mortgage again. And the reason being is very simple. Interest rates are very low at present. A slight move in interest rates. All of a sudden, if people are taking...
Different ball game.
Yeah. So therefore,
absolutely.
I think what we maybe need to learn is that one less bathroom suite or one less room can make us equally happy.
You've got to believe it.
If you look at the people who came out of considerably smaller abodes than people are living in today, maybe we've got carried away with the Joneses, and maybe we need to put back in perspective our needs, and albeit that there are such special circumstances that one could be looking after an elderly parent or whatever and have to build a house or a special needs child or whatever, but within reason, ignoring those unique special circumstances, perhaps the model is not in the 80% mortgage or the 100% mortgage. Perhaps the model is to make sure we build a house that we can sustain for 30 or 40 years.
Pat the baker, Pat Higgins over in Granard, when I went to him, he's dead and gone now, God love him. When I went to do a nationwide program with him, one of the most successful bakers on the island of Ireland, I said, Pat, coming down to Granard, I have seldom seen such magnificent houses. There are houses with 2 garages, a garage for each, the sort of thing you're talking about. And he looked at me and said, Rowan, it has been my experience, it can be clogs to clogs in one generation. That kind of sums up your philosophy there, if you're not careful.
Yeah, well, I think we all have to be careful, and we just have to keep our feet on the ground.
And that keeping of the feet on the ground for my dear friend Pat, when I went to see him 6 years ago, before he died, multimillionaire, but still living in the same terraced house in the middle of Granard that he moved into all those years before. He wasn't driven by the need to have bigger and better to out-Jones the Joneses. Never.
Yeah, I'm not saying, and don't misinterpret me, I'm not knocking significant houses at all.
No.
What I'm simply saying is, I think...
Cut your cloth to suit.
I think that basically we all have to be careful that we have to allow for the little shocks that cause rainy days.
Okay. What you might do for us next week, and I think we're coming to a time when people, by the end of January, have to put in tax returns. That's a date. Yeah. And for the ordinary 5/8 out there who's a small business person, we might just define kind of a sort of 15-minute seminar on how to do it. That might be good.
Well, you know what they always say, Rowan, if you're doing seminars, you need experts. And
you are there.
I am many things, but in that particular area, I have colleagues who do that. And I will arrange for that at some stage, the tax return made simple.
That would be good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go well. Take care.